Okay, here we go. So we ended off yesterday. We're in the middle of discussing what is the machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. So it's really one of these Gemaras that continues. So let's begin with a quick chazara, and then we'll go a little weiter. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. We're about 10 lines down. The first word line is bar Yitzchak. This part we did last night, but it will lay the foundation. Halach. A sukkah has to be big enough. Shalom Rav David. Sukkah has to be big enough to hold Roishai Rubai Shalchanai 7 by 7 tvach. Amli Rav Abba Kiman. We think Kibei Shammai. This is a Mishnah on Daf Chav Ches. Shalom Rav Menachem. It's a Mishnah Daf Chav Ches, and over there it sounds like we're going with Shitas Bei Shammai. So we're saying Kiman Kibei Shammai. Amar Lei El Kiman. Whom else? We're going like Bei Shammai. Okay, part A is we think that we're going with Shitas Bei Shammai. How big does the sukkah have to be? 7 by 7. Ika di Amri, Lashon number 2. Amar, later Rav Abba. In this Lashon Rav Abba says, Damar L'chamani, who is the Tana of the Mishnah? And here he says, oh, I'm sorry, Chevra, why didn't no one tell me that my camera's off? I'm sorry. Oh, you guys are so in the Gemara, you didn't even notice. Okay, Givaldik, I apologize. Amar Lei. One more time. Amar le Rav Abba Damar L'chamani. Amar le Beis Shammai v'lo tazuz minei. So part A is we think that for some interesting reason we're passing like Beis Shammai. How large is a sukkah? 7 by 7. Part B. Maskiv lo Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Asks Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Mimai de Beis Shammai sel b'sukkah ketana pligi. How do you know? Shalom Rav Sirli. How do you know that the machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel is a small sukkah? Dilma, perhaps sukkah gedayla pligi. Maybe they're arguing about a large sukkah. Okay, gain, and what's the case? Yasa puma dematlasa. You're sitting at the edge of the sukkah. V'sholchanei b'toich habayis. And what's the machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel? We're smack in the middle of the Amud. The first little line is the Beis Shammai. The Beis Shammai savri gazarin on shami yimashich asholchanei. Says Beis Shammai, you know why it's possible? Not because the sukkah is too small, because we're afraid you're going to be drawn after your food. Beis Hillel avri loy gazrin. Givaldik. Says the Gemara v'tekinami. I'll prove to you that this is the machlokes. Why? Tekatani. It says in that Mishnah Daf Chav Ches. And parenthetically, we mentioned why in the world is this whole discussion over here? We should wait for Daf Chav Ches. The Mefarshim are very busy trying to figure that point out. But either way, the raya is, it says over there, Misha Yaroisha V'Ruba V'Sukkah V'Sholchane V'Tech Beis Shammai Paislim Beis Hillel Machshirim V'Em Isa. And if the machlokes was the size of the sukkah, machzekes ve'enoi machzekes mi ba'ilei. It should have said, is the sukkah big enough to hold it? It should not have said paislin or machshirin. And it should not have said misha haya, telling us the story. Okay, that was basically where we ended last night. We went a drop further. That was basically where we ended. So far, where are we holding? First, we thought that we're going with Beis Shammai, minimum size sukkah 7 by 7. And we said, how do you know? Shalom Rav Nachi. How do you know? Maybe what's going on over here is, a large sukkah, and we're just discussing the gezerah, whether there is a gezerah that you might be drawn after your sukkah. Says the Gemara, Upsukkah kitana loy pligi. Is there not a machlokes about a sukkah kitana? V'hatanya, and here, let's key in over here, because we read this very fast last night, and this is the point that's basically new. V'hatanya, good evening, Rav Shragi. V'hatanya, we learned in a brayso. Machzekes reish v'rubav shalchanai ksheira. The brayso says, if the sukkah is large enough to hold the roishai, rubai, shalchanai, body, head, and table, kosher. Rebbe Omer, no. Has to be bigger. Achiheba arba amos l'arba amos. Brisa number 1. Brisa number 2. Vitani idach. Rebbe Omer, kol sekeshem arba amos l'arba amos sulam. Okay, so Rebbe's fine. What's the kasha from the two Brisas? V'chachamim oimrim afilu einoi machzekes ela roishai rubai. Wait, where's the table? Ksheira. V'ilu shulchana ilakatani. The second brisa doesn't say that according to the Chachamim you need to have your table in the sukkah. Kashon hadadi. So the two brises are stiros. Elalav, how do we answer up the stira? Shema minaha beis Shammai. The one that says you need a table is beis Shammai. Ha beis Hillel. And one is beis Hillel. So what do we just prove? We just proved that seemingly beis Shammai and beis Hillel indeed argue as to the minimum size of the sukkah, whether it is 7 by 7 or even smaller. Amar Mar Zutra. Says Mar Zutra, even smaller. According to Beis Hillel, you don't even need to have your table. You're remembering, good question, you're remembering that, wait, we had a machlokes 7 by 7 or 4 amos or 4 amos. That's true. That's Rebbe versus the Chachamim. Now we have a second potential machlokes. We're trying to figure out whether they indeed argue. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, if it can even be smaller, says Beis Hillel, you don't even need to hold your table. Says the Gemara, Amar Mar Zutra, Masnisa Nami Deika. The Mishnah is precise. Why? The words of the Mishnah say as follows: Beis Shammai poislim, uBeis Hillel machshirim. Beis Shammai say it's pasul, and Beis Hillel say it is kosher. Ve'im isa, and if it is the way that you are explaining, what should the Mishnah have said? Meaning, if you're telling me that the Mishnah is discussing a gezeira like we just suggested, and the Mishnah is discussing a large sukkah, and the shaila is, are you worried you're going to be drawn after your table? The word shouldn't be pasul or kosher. V'im isa beis Shammai oimrim lo yatsa, beis Hillel oimrim yatsa. Very fine nuance. Kosher, pasul, talks to the sukkah. Yatsa, not yatsa, talks to the person.
So yatsa, not yatsa is whether you personally fit.
Correct. No. Whether you personally will be yatsa.
Right, but
the size of the sukkah could be very big, but if there was a gezeira that you might be drawn after your food, that would be called lo yatsa. Meaning, were you in a sukkah? You're in a beautiful sukkah. Your sukkah gets a check. You as a person doesn't get a check. So says the Gemara, the fact that the Mishnah said kosher and pasul seemingly is talking to what? Seemingly is talking to the sukkah. Says the Gemara, but what's the problem? Like we said earlier, the Mishnah seemingly was telling a story. Mishahaya. A story, one who was sitting in a sukkah, seems to be discussing not the size of the sukkah, but the person. So we have a contradiction over here. On one hand, the Mishnah says pasul, not pasul, which seems to talk to the building. On the other hand, the Mishnah says yatsa, not yatsa, which seems to talk. On the other hand, the Mishnah says mishahaya, which seems to talk to the person. Velakasha asked the Gemara mishahaya. So answers the Gemara after this long and winded discussion. La'olam bitarti pligi. There are two machlekes going on. Pligi b'sukkah ketana or pligi b'sukkah gedayla. We have a machlekes number one as to what is the size of the sukkah. And we have a machlekes number two is there a gezira in a large sukkah? V'chasure mechsra v'hachi katani. And in classical Gemara sense, there are words missing from the Mishnah. And we remind ourselves, how could words be missing? Gemara is orally transmitted, Torah Shebal Peh, and it was called broken telephone, so we left out some words. Says the Gemara, and this is the real way to read the Mishnah. Okay, so we're telling a story. Beis Shammai Oimrim lo yatsa. Beis Hillel Oimrim yatsa, very good. Talking to whom? The person. Yoitze versus not Yoitze. Mishahaya is telling us a story. Now the Mishnah continues with case 2. If it's not large enough, and it's not big enough to hold your table, then we have a secondary machlokes. Beis Shammai poislim, because the sukkah is not big enough. Ubeis Hillel machshirin. We're going to stop over here, but the truth is, these are one of the Gemaras. They're really from the Maskana. The whole previous Gemara makes a lot of sense. Because in the Maskana, we now understand that the word Yatsa, Lo Yatsa, Kasher, Pasul are two different things. And Mishahaya is something else. So that Mishnah Dav Chav Ches was just odd, because they confused two different entities. It said Mishahaya telling me a story, which seems to be talking about a Gezerah. Then it said Kasher Apostle, seems to be talking about a Sukkah. So the Gemara went back and forth. Is there a Machlikis? Is it not a Machlikis? Yes, no, Raya is either way. Finally, the Gemara says, no, there's two different things, and we have to add in some extra words. They're number one arguing, is there a Gezerah? And they're number two arguing as to the size of the Sukkah. That's really an entire Amid. Let's read through the Amid. Let's get a good Chazara so that B'siyata D'Shemaya we can go weiter tomorrow night.